Once upon a time. At Agape, we talk about the creative process. We talk about that the creative process is always within us. And we talk about the creative process always begins with an idea and a thought. And we talk about that once we have that idea and that thought, we can form an intention or a desire surfaces. So we have a thought. We analyze that thought because there's contrast all around us. And with that thought, we feel the contrast, and a desire is birthing itself from within us. And so we formulate that desire. With that desire now, we form an intention. Where are we going to take that desire? So we're going to move toward the direction of something. And you see, most of us can get there. Most of us can get there. Here's the critical pieces. There now comes a point where we must decide. We must decide that the desire and the intention are so worthy of our efforts that we're willing to leave everything else behind us in order to move ourselves forward. Once we make that decision, then every action that we take, all of our action is divinely guided by that which is within us to go in that direction. And we move there step by step, inch by inch. Every thought, every word, every action there. That's the creative process. And so as we do that, it's not what you do. It's not who you are. It's not where you go. It's why are you doing it? What is it within you that is pulling you forth? Is it that higher sense of love that is desiring to express itself? It's that tugging within us. I heard a great term this week from a brother in ministry. And we were talking about the idea of addiction. And he said, you know what addiction is? When someone is an addict, it means that they are a frustrated mystic. Because there's such a desire within them to come forth to experience love at the greatest possible way, and they don't know how to do it. It's so big, it's pulling them forward in every aspect that they have to turn to something that they become addicted to, whether it's alcohol, whether it's booze, whether it's sex, whether it's shopping, whatever it is. They turn to that because the pain of not having this calling of love within them is so great that they have to numb themselves. And then you hear about when the addicts go down and they go deeper and deeper, they've got to go down to the bottom, that for them, then they realize, okay, wait a second, I can't go any deeper. I must now reach out and go for that which I desire. And all of a sudden, you'll see transformation in life happening with people. So that is an extreme form of transformation. We do not have to have that level of dark night of the soul to go on this journey of awakening. So I want to share with you the story of my trip to India. But it wasn't just a trip to India. It was an adventure of personal transformation. And what happened for me was that many, many years ago, I was just enamored by the Indian philosophy. I was just enamored by, there's something different. There's something very spiritual there. And so that thought was implanted in my mind. No more than that thought. Then I read a book about climbing Mount Everest. And I got to the idea of, whoa. And they talked about the sacredness of the mountains in the Himalayas and what a spiritual aspect it was. It wasn't just a physical aspect. So that got implanted in my mind. And then I got into the spiritual path. And as I got into the spiritual path, I remember one day being at a conference and saying to a peer, I said, I'm looking to go deeper and I'm not sure what my next path is. And the comment was, just meditate more. So I began the deepening of meditation. And then about beginning of November of last year, I asked the question, where could I go to deepen? What can I do to deepen? And it came to me, I wanted to do meditation. I wasn't sure where I wanted to do it. The next day, a friend of mine called me and said, Kriya Yoga, for the very first time in their life, is opening up an ashram. And that ashram has never been visited by anyone other than monks. But there's an opportunity now, if you get your application in, you could go there. They're going to select from people from all over the world. Immediately, I knew that was mine to do. Called up my wife at work. I asked her, I said, I'm intending to go here. Is there anything on your plate that requires me to be around? And with graciousness, she said, no, go. So I filled out the application. Now see, the idea is not getting to India and doing it. It's the process from creating the idea till the time forevermore. So I want to talk to you what happened from November till June 11th when I flew there. Immediately, I set an intention. It was going to be the greatest time of my life. I would experience a deepening connection with all that exists in the divine, with love. I did not know how it was going to happen, but I knew it would transform. I would go to REI once about every week because I had to have just the perfect stuff. You had to have the perfect sleeping bag. You have to have the perfect cooking utensils. You had to have the perfect water jug that would purify the water because you've heard about if you drink the water over there, you're going to be in miserable shape. You had to have the perfect clothes to meditate in. You had to have a perfect portable meditation cushion that you could take with you. You had to have something to support your back because you're going to be in meditation 2, 4, 6, 9 hours a day. I don't know if you've ever done meditation that long, but as I'll tell you in my journey, when you get to about the 6th, 7th, and 8th hours, your body is screaming. And so you're taking all of this preparation, and in it, not only that, but you're researching. You're looking at everything about India. What's it like to be in an ashram? What can you expect? What about the mosquitoes? What's the climate like? How do I dress? Is there any language barriers? Are there anything medical you need to do? And you weigh all of these options, so the whole process is unfolding. But you got to go back to the idea. What was my intention? My intention was simply personal transformation. It was about going within. It was about finding a deeper relationship with the infinite. It was about becoming unattached. It was about seeking greater clarity. It was also about being present in every moment. You see, it's not about where you get to. It's the presence that you have in this moment. And so as all of this preparation took place, there was another thing I realized. They didn't have Western toilets. They had these things where like holes in the ground and you had to do this squatting thing, and it was very different. So I set an intention and I prayed more than I care to tell you about having a Western style toilet. I'm just going to put that out there. I literally prayed for a specific toilet. I don't know, have you ever prayed for a specific toilet? It's quite embarrassing. I was very embarrassed, and so I become unattached to how I look. That's why I'm sharing this with you at this time. So this goes on, and what I got was, as you're going on a journey, it's about putting one foot in front of the other in a consciousness of awareness and using your spiritual tools of meditation, prayer to keep you grounded. So the preparation happened, and all this is going on, and the excitement is building. There is no doubt it's becoming greater and greater and greater. And so I'm literally living the bliss. June 11th. We get to June 11th, and the airplane's about to take off. I packed 2 days early. I'm that excited. It was like Christmas. My wife takes me to the airport. I hug and kiss her, and I says, I love you, and I'm not going to miss you. You see, I've set an intention. I'm there with the divine as me, and I am leaving everything behind. I want you to also know I was not going to take an electronic device. And at the last minute, I said, maybe something would happen that I needed to make a phone call. So I had my phone. I had everything set up with Sprint that my phone would work over there if I so needed it to work. So I get on the airplane. And I flew American Airlines to Newark. And then in Newark, I got on this airline by the name of Jet Air. And I want you to know, we think that in the United States, we have the greatest businesses and the greatest airlines around. I want you to know that is not true based on my recent experience. When I got on Jet Air, I want to tell you I have never been more pampered in my life. I mean, every flight attendant was dressed, groomed. They were there for your personal pleasure, for your personal satisfaction. They served meals. They served phenomenal meals. You want a vegetarian meal, sir? They gave you a vegetarian meal. It was very good. They were constantly catering to you. So I'm on this flight, and as I'm on this flight, I'm eating. I'm reading my book, A New Design for Living, because I decided that I would take one of the books, one of my favorite books in the world by Ernest Holmes, and I would center myself in that book when I wasn't in deep meditation. And so I was able to sit on this plane, read, eat good food. I meditated. I did all of this. I got to know some of the people around me. My trip on the airplane was first class luxury. So we land. And we land in the airport. The New Delhi airport is as modern as any airport that you're going to find in the United States. In fact, it was very empty. And so when I got off the plane, I looked around and it was just very clean, very empty, and you had a lot of walking to do. So you did a lot of walking and you got down to the main baggage area and you walk up to an exchange counter, and the first thing you do is you exchange your money. And when you're exchanging your money, now you start to notice a slight difference, because the Indian men that I was speaking with, their dialect was such, I didn't understand as clearly as I would with someone in America. So you really had to focus in, zero in, because you're exchanging money. You're exchanging money, and it's happening right there. And now you're starting to feel more people come around, and you're starting to feel some chaos come into the place. So I did that. I got my luggage, and then I was supposed to meet two ladies there, one from Denver, one from Dallas, who was in another part of India. So I went walking naturally, just walking, saying, I'll find this woman. I went out, and lo and behold, I saw Heidi. Heidi's a friend from Kriya Yoga that lives in Colorado. And we greeted, and we said, is our other person here? And we tried to get people to help us to find our other person. We couldn't. And Heidi's starting to say, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And I said, wait a second, she's at the other terminal. There's no way that she's going to come to this terminal. She's going to probably already have taken a cab. So we went out, and I said, it's logical that they're going to have a sign here for us, and they did. There was a sign for Wolak and a sign for Heidi. And so I went there, and the cab driver was there. And now the Indian experience really began to unfold. Because now there were two drivers. Well, Heidi and I only wanted to go in one vehicle together. We didn't need a separate vehicle, but they said, no, no, no. And we were on the phone. We were on the phone with their bosses, everything. The language barrier got crazy, and I finally said, let's just take a breath. What is it ours to do? And what came to me is both of these people, they were prepaid cabs. They wouldn't get paid if they didn't take a customer, and they need the money because of the economy there. So I just said, Heidi, take this cab, and I'll take the other cab. And so we did. So what happened then, as you come out the airport and you get in the cab, you start seeing a lot more people. Not a lot yet, but now you're in the cab and you begin the journey. And at this moment, your senses become overwhelmed. You will have more noise than you've ever experienced in your life. You will have more smell than you've ever experienced in your life. There is no personal space. People are everywhere. Cars and vehicles are 6 across. Cars on a 2-lane road. You'll have 5, 6 cars across, mixed in with scooters, mixed in with rickshaws, mixed in with bicycles, mixed in with people walking. It's everywhere. And there's honking going on everywhere, 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 honking going on. And yet, there's a flow. No one's getting hurt. No one's getting mad. But you can feel your Western personality starting to go, what the heck is going on? And then you got to go back to your spiritual practice and say, wait a second, be present. Calm down. Allow this process to be. Don't be attached to the way it has to unfold. Look at the driver. Is the driver the individualization of God expressing? And you realize it is. So you start trusting. And when they're going like this into cars, you're leaning, you're moving, and I'm telling you, it was a 45-minute journey from hell. But I want you to know that that was just a taste of the journey to come. So we get to the hotel, and I want you to know the hotel gave us a link. And they showed us this magnificent room. And in this room, it looked like a 5-star room. I'm going to tell you, and it was $30 a night. Everything you could imagine. Now, when the cab driver pulled up to this hotel, and you are looking on the other side of the street at a ghetto that's unimaginable by the worst standards we have here, You've got beggars all around you. The second the cab pulls up, you are surrounded by beggars, surrounded by children. This is 10:30 at night, who are all seeking handouts. And you're there and you're trying to get in, and you finally do get in to the hotel, and you're greeted, and then you start the language issue. And you have to just breathe. You just breathe into it. And then you find Heidi arrives about 2 minutes later, and we find that Aaron has already arrived there. So we breathe. Everyone in our group has arrived. We're safe. Everything is cool. So you go up to your room, and you go to sleep, and you go into the bathroom, and lo and behold, it's not a Western-style toilet, is it? It was very interesting. All that prayer work didn't work. I want you to know that it continues. The prayer work about the toilet continues. This is a never-ending journey for me on this trip. And you just sit and you surrender into the room. And you just closed your eyes with your arms extended. I remember it like it was yesterday, and I just took a deep breath. And I said, I'm here, and whatever needs to unfold is going to unfold for me. So I went to sleep, and I woke up like at 3 in the morning. And I didn't know what to do, so I went into meditation. I did 2 hours of meditation. I then went outside, and the guy outside says, no, you don't walk. So I went back inside, and I went up to the restaurant. And what you would think is a restaurant was just a room. There was nothing in it. And a gentleman came out, and he brings you something, a menu, and you look at it, and the next thing you know, I ordered something, and another person came up, and finally there were about 8 people who were going there for the Kriya trip, for the Kriya Yoga ashram. And we started talking. And so I wanted an adventure, and so I partnered with 2 gentlemen there. A gentleman from Ecuador and a gentleman from an Arabic country. I forget which one it was. And we arranged to hire a cab. We hired a cab for the day. It cost us 1,200 or 1,500 rupees. So what, $30 for the entire day, a cab at our disposal. And we went to this ashram that was in the midst of Delhi. And it was like 100 and some acres. It was built in like 1999. It was pristine. But I'm going to tell you, going there was not that experience, because the journey of the cab getting to the hotel got really intense in the morning. And you were zigzagging in and out of traffic. You were watching things. You were mesmerized seeing the contrast of life. Because in the United States, we don't see that contrast. We don't appreciate how good we've got it. We don't appreciate the ease in which we live. And when we got to this magnificent mosque, and I realized as you started going through, it was like being in Disneyland. Because you would walk from room to room, and there would be a screen, and they would tell the story of the Swami, and they would show different parts and have different people or robot-type people talking and doing the part. And you would do this, and it was like an hour and a half, and then you went into a boat ride that was like It's a Small World at Disney World, except it was about the small Swami who was 11 years old, who went into the foothills of the Himalayas, who went through this transformational journey. And you're going there, and you're seeing, this is fascinating. It's just fascinating. And what you find is that being in that ashram, and it really wasn't an ashram, it was a temple ashram dedicated to the Swami to attract people in, to ask them to maybe question so that they might become a part of the type of teaching that was being taught by the Swami. And over in India, the Swamis, they have different spiritual practices. They have different ways of meditating. And all of them are good, but when you attach, you tend to find someone like, here we have the Christians, and we have 50,000 denominations of Christianity. We have Muslims, we have Jewish people, we have Hindus and Buddhists here. The same thing over there, just different ways of expressing and finding the oneness. We came out of there, and I said to the cab driver, I said, I really want to see something different. Take me to the finest vegetarian restaurant in Delhi. The cab driver says, I know exactly where I'm going to take you. So we start on another 45-minute trip through the city. And you're there, and you're moving along, and I'm going to tell you, I am a little nervous. My wife would have died. She thinks at times I'm the worst driver. I want to tell you, I would be like the best driver in all of India. It would be incredible. So we finally we come up, and you know how they've got these rental places, the storage lockers, and they're all garage door after garage door after garage door? Well, that's how a lot of the streets are. And the garage doors are old, they're not new, they're rusted, and they're up and down, and people are in front, and their goods are out in front. And then when you go inside, that's their shop. Well, the cab driver lets us out, and I'm looking at him and said, "This is the finest restaurant in Delhi? You've got to be kidding me." And he says, "You just go, you just go." So we walk through this door, and there's another door, and we open it. And we go inside, and the floors are all marble. The walls are marble halfway up. They have marble tables. The room is maybe 20 feet by 12 feet. We sit down, and we had a 5-course meal that was the best you ever could have had. $2.50. The best vegetarian meal I've ever had, $2.50. I tipped the waiter $2.50. I felt it would be an insult to tip the waiter more than the food, but to that waiter, that was a lot of money. You realize my cab driver there told me that he made $200 a year. And he worked 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. Think about $200 a year. So we go from there and we come back to the hotel, and everyone comes together. All the Kriya people come together. There's now 40 of us in this hotel. And we decide to start sharing stories, and the stories start building. And the excitement about getting to the ashram, being in this sacred ashram, starts filling. We're all talking about it. And Swami, who's going to lead the silent retreat, Swami is there, and he's there. He's telling us about the sacredness and why they chose this ashram. And it's how it's on the banks of the Ganga River, right on the foothills of the Himalayas. And the view is absolutely spectacular. And when we're there, we're going to feel the energy of the monks who have meditated there for years and years and years. And so we're all building to that. So the next morning, we're out at 5 a.m. And when we're out there, 40 people with a couple buses out down the road, every beggar in Delhi was there waiting for us. Every beggar in Delhi, they knew we were there, and they were coming because this is how they made their living. The key thing when you're dealing with beggars in Delhi, you have to understand is you may feel sorry for them, and they're not doing it for themselves. A lot of times the beggars have what I would call a pimp, and they have to give the pimp their money. They will literally rent babies from new mothers so that they can carry them and beg with that there. You had people that were crippled, and we watched it. The crippled person would take a donation from a couple people. The next thing you know, the pimp is walking up and he's taking the money. And I asked our guide who was with us, and he says, "Oh, this is common. That's why don't give." When you go there, at the end of the retreat, you give to the Swami in charge at the ashram. He'll make sure that the villagers get the money who need the money. It's just very interesting. It's a different culture. It's a different way of seeing life. So we get on this bus, and we're going to the train station. We've got a 5-hour train ride. And we get to the train station, and a dear friend of mine who's at the Frisco Chamber of Commerce, he said, if the only thing you ever do in India is one thing, go to a train station, and you will see things like you've never seen in your life. You will see everything in the world. And it was the case. And I'm not going to go into graphic detail, but you saw everything you could possibly imagine beyond in the world there. And in that state of beyond, you had to tune your eyes and see God. Because everything you've been taught as a human being says there's no God here. The poverty is so extreme, so distinct, so beyond that you cannot even imagine. You had to force yourself to see that, to see that, to see that. And so in that consciousness, you went through and you got on your train station. You got on your car. And we were in a luxury train. When I say a luxury train, it's no different than a commuter train that you would find anywhere. But we had assigned seats. Across from us was a normal train where people were pulled out the windows, pushed out the doors. They were stuffed in like cattle. And so as we went on the train ride, I expected as we got out of Delhi to start to be able to see a difference. But I never did. I kept seeing the same poverty. I kept seeing the same thing, except there was more space. There was more space. At the end, we got to another train station. It was in how do you say that? Rishikesh? Rishikesh. In Rishikesh. And there, we got off, and we were greeted again by beggars. I think they followed us from Delhi. And we got in cabs. So we got in cabs that were like, you know what a Land Rover looks like, how big a Land Rover is? Okay, well, in these cabs, 3 people in the front, 3 people in the center, 2 seats in the back, 4 people there. So there's 10 of us in each of these. And there were 4 of them. And we proceeded now on a 10-hour journey down roads through the mountains, going in and out, honking the entire way, thinking you're going to go off the cliff in any moment because you're going to do a head-on collision with another vehicle for 10 hours. Now, I want you to know, we stopped because we had a flat tire. And we stopped somewhere you wouldn't even know, and then all of a sudden, you see a guy opening up a warehouse shed, and he's got a tire, and he comes over to the cab driver. They start putting the tire on the vehicle. While we're doing that, we see a hill. And all of us in this vehicle go running to the hill because they don't stop to go to the bathroom. It's now been all this time since 5 a.m. You're there and you're going. So you finally come back and everyone's smiling. It's the biggest smile I've had in Delhi at this point. I'm just smiling because it's a relief. We're back to the potty humor, aren't we? We get in again. An hour later, one of our other vehicles that had been in front of us had pulled over. Its brake line had broke. And so we stop, and in the course of 15 minutes, they fixed the brake line by taking one of our fellow passengers' dental floss and using the dental floss to fix the brake line, put some brake fluid that they had, pumped the brakes, said, "It's good." And so there they go. Everyone piles back in. They go in front of us. We start the process of following, and we go another 5 hours. And it's now dark, and we're going through these hills. Finally, we pull off to the side of the road. Remember, we're on the opposite side, so we're over here, and we pull off to the side of the road over here, and the cab driver says, "Get out." Well, you don't see anything. It's pitch dark. You're not in a city anywhere. And you hear this rumbling, and you realize there's a river. And then someone takes a flashlight, and they hold a flashlight, and you see the big Ganga River right there. And then all of a sudden you see, "Get your suitcase." They say, "Get your suitcase." So you get your suitcase, your backpack, and now you got to go over a suspension bridge 150 yards. And you're taking all this 150 yards over the suspension bridge, and you're going like this, you're moving, and you're going, and and the second we got out of the vehicle, it starts to rain. It starts to rain. That was an omen. We get up on the other side, and now we had to take our bags about 300 yards, and we get to the ashram. We make sure everyone's there. We're told, go to our rooms, and I'm assigned my room with 3 other gentlemen. And they're saying, now we'll be up at 4:30 in the morning for yoga, and we'll begin the silent retreat. I walk into my room. I put my suitcase by my bed. My bed is a mattress this big. There's no furniture, anything. You put your suitcase down on the floor. And I immediately said, it's time for the bathroom. I went into the bathroom, an Eastern-style bathroom. Isn't that interesting? I'm stopping the journey there because I want to share with you a couple things. And this is a theme throughout the whole process. There's no way you'll know something without a direct experience. I'm sharing you that because I've been told all the things I've been telling you before, but I didn't experience it, so I didn't know it. So if you have children, and you think your children are going to get it by what you say, you're grossly wrong. The child will experience it in their own way, and from that experience, they will get the lesson. Our role is to support. Remember, the only reason I went on this trip was for personal transformation, and that's the only reason we're going through life. It's about personal transformation. It's about uncovering the greaterness of who we are, and in that uncovering it, being with people who love and support us as we go through this journey to become that. And we come together in groups that do that, and what I'm finding that since India, I do not have the time nor the energy to be with people who are not on that journey, who are not willing to support or not willing to see that there's a further advancement. And so what I'm finding is that my time, as I uncovered in India, is the most valuable asset that we have. It's not our money, it's not our stuff, it's not our wives, it's not our children, it is our time. Because the time represents that which is desiring to experience oneness, to experience love. And until we experience it, there's always this calling from within that is pulling us forward. And it's only when we center ourselves into the love, into the oneness, that we finally feel at peace. And when we feel at peace, rest assured you're going to have contrast that's going to take you back into the world to get you to come forward again. Because you can always have more. That's the beauty of being an infinite expression of God. You're always going to have more. There's always a higher level and a higher level and a higher level. But we've got to have the contrast, and we've got to come to the peace at the level we're at. Allow that to permeate through us. Be comfortable with it. Then experience a new contrast and raise to another level. It's just like being in the corporate world. Start in the mailroom, become a supervisor, go into another department, and it's a progression upward. We are not meant to ever be static. So far I talked about clarity. Clarity is happening. Realizing that my small world is not the only world out there. That there are things infinite things I've yet to experience. Clarity that other people have things much more difficult than I ever imagined. A sense of oneness in that I could feel a connection with the people. I could feel a connection with the energy. A sense of detachment, realizing it's not going to be my way. It's going to be whatever way that happens, and I get the choice to embrace it and be in oneness or not be. And to not be in oneness is unpeaceful. So I want to let you know this was just the beginning. The rest of the journey even went more. And for that, we'll wait for next week. I want to thank you for joining us today. I am so grateful that you took your time to watch or listen to this message. If you found this message beneficial, I would ask you to go to our website. Once there, click on the Contribute button and experience the joy of conscious and purposeful giving. It is through your gifts that we are able to bring this message to the world. I would also ask you to please share this message with anyone you feel might benefit. Again, I want to thank you for joining me and the Agape community as together we bring joy to life.